Hey y'all, thanks everybody so much for joining us today. My name is Christina Caesar and I'll be moderating today's session. Today's webinar is on universal print, which I know our speaker Adrian's so excited on today and I'm excited to hear about it. But this is Microsoft Print. It's universal print is Microsoft's new print destination service. That was a mouthful. Just a reminder, this session is being recorded and please make sure to send any questions through the Q&A function within Teams. Just a little bit about us. Synergy Technical is an IT consulting firm headquartered in Richmond, Virginia. We have clients in over 70 countries and all 50 states and manage over 2 million licenses of Microsoft 365 for our clients through our licensing and managed services practice. In February 2020, we were awarded the Microsoft 365 Security Deployment Partner of the Year Award. And a large part of that success is the work done by today's presenter, Adrian Amos. Adrian is a deep-level Microsoft security expert who's had the honor of running both productivity and security workshops at Microsoft Ignite. So always perfect person for this. And Adrian, sorry, I was so excited about printing. I botched my intro to the title, but whenever you're ready to take over and share your screen, we'll get into it because I know you got a lot of content you want to cover.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much, Christina. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. And just as a note for folks, as I'm moving around through here, I've got two screens over here. So if I'm looking over here, I'm not ignoring you. I've just got stuff going on in two different places. So let me know, are you able to see my, oh wait, I haven't even done it yet. So
yep,
look at that. I'm so excited. I'm not even sharing properly.
I know, we're so jazzed.
All right. So why am I excited about universal print? Well, because frankly, printing is the worst thing in the whole wide world, and it has always been the worst thing in the whole wide world. And for 21 years of Active Directory, we have been building our solutions and architecting our environments around this arcane idea of printing. And why do I say 21 years? Well, it's not because of the age of Active Directory. It's because digital signatures were signed into law in daggone 2000, June of 2000. Bill Clinton signed digital signatures into law, and I was so excited because at the time I was just transitioning into enterprise solutions, and I was like, oh man, we're going to stop using these dumb printers, right? And here we are still now 21 years later. Everybody has to have a printer. I've still had environments where people literally print every stinking email they receive, and it's just nuts. But the real problem that printing puts us into right now is that because we're still trying to solve for this 21-year-old problem, and I know it's older than that, but let's just round up, right? The 21-year-old problem, we can't embrace some elements that we really want to from a cloud perspective because we're still tied to trying to solve a 20-plus-year-old problem with the exact same tools that we've had in place all this time. And those tools are notoriously flaky, right? Print spooler service, its favorite hobby is to crash. And I mean, we've done all kinds of different environments over the years. I've done a clustered print server to try to get past the problem of everybody stacking up all their printers on one server, and the spooler would crash daily. So we clustered it. I mean, we've done all kinds of ridiculous stuff to try to make printing scale. The problem is that we're trying to it's a big old square peg in a gigantic round hole. It's absurd, right? But the good news is that we now have, and I've been seeing this in preview and been excited to get ready to talk about it for the last like 6 months. It's been here, universal print in Azure. What does that allow us to do? What it allows us to do is stop relying on-premises print servers that are Active Directory joined. And what that means is that we can finally start talking about retiring our on-premises data centers entirely, because printing has been one of the last big major ties to the on-premises data center. Okay, so all that's great. What is it? How does it work? Universal Print is an Azure service. We'll get into the licensing of it. We'll get into the real architecture of it, all that kind of fun stuff. But it allows us to take print devices and serve them up into the cloud, and actually even pre-distribute them out to users' desktops so that we can give them the printers that they want, that they expect to see, and we can actually do all the fun stuff that we've always expected. All of the native capabilities of most printers are supported in there, so we can do color, we can do duplex, we can do all that kind of fun stuff. We have it subscription-based, and it's included, and we'll talk about that, like I said, a little bit later on. But let's show you kind of how this works, right? So, as with many things in cloud management, and this aligns with where we've been talking about the security features for the last 6 months, what we end up with is basically a bank of objects and a policy by which we share those objects. So if we go back a couple months to our Azure information protection discussion, we had our labels and we would publish them through policies. In Universal Print, we have our printers and we publish them through printer shares. And we can swap printers in and out. We can do all kinds of really cool stuff with this. But essentially, we can take our list of on-premises printers, we can define a whole bunch of parameters around them, and we can share them out very easily to our users. And we can share these things out in batch. We can share them out however we want to. Like I said, we can actually even pre-deploy them into end users' devices. But there's a rub, okay? So I've said we're going to get away from Active Directory joined print servers. That was a very specifically worded statement because we are not yet getting away from sharing printers through devices. And that's as a result of the fact that modern printers, or actually legacy printers, we'll call them legacy printers right now. Legacy print devices include everything that's currently in market. And what that means is that in order to get print devices registered through Universal Print, they have to do one of two things. One is, and I'll show you in my beautiful little slide here, they can either be Universal Print ready print devices, which is everything that's coming, or they can be printers, right? And you know, any in market is what Microsoft's calling it. Any current in market print device has to be served up to the cloud through a Universal Print connector. Once that's done, that connector then has to also stay online in order to manage the interface between Universal Print and the print device. I hear your question, how is that not a print server? Well, it's not exactly a print server, and it certainly isn't Azure Active Directory joined, nor is it Active Directory joined, because in fact, this device right here happens to be Alan DeYoung's computer in Contoso, and here we go. Here is the interface by which we are serving up devices. But this device right here is a personally owned device that I have sitting over there in the corner waiting for me to send print jobs through it. And this is a piece of paper that went through that computer attached to a Universal Print queue. So we're not tied to domain joined devices anymore, okay? And that's actually pretty critical if one of our goals is to get out of Active Directory on premises. So let's talk a little bit about how we're going to serve these devices up and how it's going to look and how we're going to configure them and what it's going to look like for the user. So I have, as Alan, a number of local or network printers attached to Alan's computer. If I look in my list of printers, here are some available print devices that I've added as Alan to this computer. We're sharing these things up. And these are the devices that are here. So we have our Contoso printers 11 and 12, we have the mailroom, we have the executive suite. One of these has already been served up to Universal Print. And if I look over here in my list of printers, you will see that we have some of these objects represented and some of these objects not represented. The mailroom Bellevue has already been registered into it. The rest have not. And I didn't do anything special to make these appear. I simply fired up this Universal Print connector, which is a download available from Microsoft. We find there are available printers. We click on yes, do all of them and hit register. And that is literally it. They are now being registered into Universal Print. Now I have some other buttons that I can click on here too. Enable hybrid AD configuration is an interesting one. When a user sends a print job to Universal Print, it uses the Azure Active Directory ID of that user. It sends it as far as Alan's computer, and at that point, Alan then interfaces with the print device, okay? If I have, for whatever reason, some sort of metering requirement where I have to be able to track it back to an actual on-premises Active Directory user, I'm going to need to turn this button on, and then Universal Print will attempt to impersonate the Active Directory user submitting the job. In most cases, we're not going to go that route, but we have that option. We can absolutely do it. All right, so I've got 2 of my 3 printers that have been registered into this space now. We're going to give this another moment or so to finish doing the Executive Suite multi-function printer. And while that's going, I'm going to see if our 11 and 12 are showing up yet. This is all pretty quick. There they are right there, right? So while Alan's sitting here turning on the other one, we'll come back to that. Now, again, we have simply now a list of banked printers, right? We can see which ones are shared. We can see which ones are not shared. We can turn on different columns. We can see what our print devices are. We can see if they're currently online accepting jobs. We flip this down through here, and you can see that there's actually, a fair number of models and printers and devices and drivers and whatnot in here. Now, I went through and named my printers based on their capabilities in a few cases, because I wanted to show what the difference is and how we serve these up for our users. But let's also look at our printer shares. All right, wait, before we even do that, we have these two printers that have not been shared to the organization, and we are going to go ahead and light up printers 11 and 12, and we're just going to hit share, and we're going to allow everybody in the organization to use these guys, although we could come down through the list and choose individual users. We could choose groups if we want to. We can build these groups, obviously, based on location. We can build them on whatever we want to. So you can get very granular and very specific about how we do this. But I'm just going to make these two printers available to everyone in the organization. That's going to automatically put these guys out here. While that's going, oh, there we go. It's already been done, right? 11 and 12 are already out here. I've got a number of printers that are already shared out here. And if I want to look down through and see how these shares are built, I'm going to get the ability to delete the share. It's not going to delete the printer. It's just going to delete the share. I'm going to see the name, the queue, and all that kind of fun stuff here. I'm going to come back to swap printer in a minute because that's pretty cool too. Got my access control here. I can rename the print share, right? So Contoso printer 009, Lexmark XPS4. That's maybe not the most helpful thing in the world. Maybe everybody in the company just knows it as the big Lexmark, right? So I can change the name of the share. There we go. That's going to change, and that's going to get republished back out to all the users in the company. So when they go to look for printers that are available to them, that's now going to be, give it a moment and refresh it. That's going to show up now in their list as the big Lexmark. Okay. Now, let's say for a moment we have a printer that has failed. For whatever reason, Contoso printer 004 is not working, and we need to replace it in place. We can actually bring in a new device, and you can actually see that I've already done that because the share name is 004, but the actual printer is 005. I can hit swap. Well, now we've sent off 004 for service. It's back. It's ready to swap back in. We're just going to hit swap, and literally it's going to replace the actual device on the back end. So we can stage all of our new printers. We can get them set up. We can get them ready to go. And when we're ready, we can simply swap them, and the users are unaware that anything has changed on the back end. But let's look at the actual printers themselves and see some of the controls that we have available with these things, because it's actually pretty robust, right? All right, now I'm a Contoso user and I want to gain access to a new printer. Let's say I'm going to be Miriam G and I just want to print. I'm going to come into my settings and I'm going to go and look for my list of printers, and you can see, hey, there's the Lexmark 4. Now that hasn't caught the rename yet, but it will in just a minute. I want another printer. I'm going to hit refresh or search for a printer, and automatically it's giving me this one. Now this is a universal print printer. And why did it give me this? This is the coolest bit. This is pulling on the default location of the Windows 10 device. So I have told Windows in the maps setting that my default location is Richmond, Virginia. And I have mapped the RVA sales printer, which is, let's see, oh, well, that's the name of the queue. Let's see, I'll have to go back actually and find, oh, there's the RVA sales printer, Contoso printer 001. I have told Universal Print that this printer is in Richmond, okay? So let's look at this. We have printer properties, printer share properties, location properties. And I went through and I found the latitude and longitude of Richmond, Virginia, and I told this Windows computer that it lives in Richmond, Virginia, and it automatically pre-filters down to the printers that are available in that space. Now we'll go through in a minute, and maybe it'll be quick, maybe it won't. We won't waste a lot of time on it. But if I change this city to San Diego for Miriam, it'll actually pull back a totally different list of printers in the default list. There's a lot of additional controls we can put in here too. There's a lot around location. And Active Directory folks may say, you know, we've been able to do location for a while, but you really kind of couldn't, right? There was the whole big multi-backslash format that you could do to define a location, but you had to be very specific about matching the format, because if you didn't match the format, things could get super wonky. or you could forget to put a format in and suddenly you have a printer that's not searchable. We can go down and list all the information about how this printer is shared, where it actually is, and we can do this for all of them. But note that this is on the actual printer and not on the share. So if you do the printer swap, you want to make sure that you actually have your attributes mapped here. So, all right, Miriam has access to this RVA sales printer, but we want to actually just search through Universal Print. And maybe we want to define where our location is. I did mention that I have different printers available in Richmond versus Bellevue, different offices, different buildings and floors within those offices. So I've actually now gotten an ability to search through Azure Active Directory for printers that exist where I am. And I can do this at any level. I can say that I'm in Bellevue in the main office, or I can say that I'm in the site services building, or I can just say Bellevue. And if I search now just in Bellevue, it's going to pull back all the printers that are in the space. And there we go. We've already seen now the new big Lexmark name is spelled it wrong, is now published out and available for me to find. Okay, this is getting really cool, right? Like I can search for printers, I can do all kinds of cool stuff, but I can also come in and change how the printer's defaults behave. I can do factory defaults, and this is actually pulling based on the information that's published about that print driver and its capabilities. So this particular device is a color device. If I'm choosing a device that's not a color device, it's not going to give me that option. Duplex mode. So this printer that I'm choosing from does not support duplex, but if it did, I would have the ability to come in and choose duplex capabilities. So there's a lot of control around here. Then again, the actual printer itself, we can go through and we can say this should not be everybody, this should be just for specific folks in our environment. And then it's also going to report back to what is the device that's serving up this printer. And again, I can have 1,000 of these. It doesn't really matter. I just am using them to register the devices in, and then they have to stay online long enough for the print to actually go through. Okay, so we've got our all of our printers listed, whether they're online, what their share names are, how they're seen. Again, we can go back through and turn on registration date, share date, manufacturer, model, all that kind of fun stuff. We also then need to, we'll come back to it. Now we'll talk about this. Document conversion. This is one little neat feature where if the printer itself doesn't support the conversion or the document type, or the queue doesn't support the document type that's being sent in, should Universal Print attempt to convert it. Right now, this is one of the areas where we're seeing that this capability, this whole Universal Print space, is still a little bit raw, right? I mean, it's a V1 product. Right now, this can only do XPS to PDF, so it converts between the two. But we also have the ability to do usage and reports. And this is really important because this whole thing is subscription-based, right? So what we need to be able to do is download reports of printers and usage. You can see I've only run one job through the thing, but it pulls it down in CSV format, and I can search through here and I can see my printer usage report. There's the printer ID with the GUID. I can trace back up to find out what that is. And I can also see Alan D. Young sent through a single job. It was a single black and white job. Not a lot there. Large organizations, it's going to matter. And let me tell you why it's going to matter. So we talked about our architecture, right? The device sends the job to Universal Print. It manages through the Universal Print connector down to the device. But the licensing is a little bit tricky, okay? So it's going to be included in your E's and your 3s and 5s, right? Whether it's E, A, or F. And you can also, and it also is included in Business Premium. You can also light it up as a standard, as a standalone subscription for $4 a user a month. And what you get for those licenses is, it seems paltry at first, but think about how this actually scales across your organization. So each user is licensed for 5 jobs per month, but that list is pooled, much like how SharePoint Online Storage is pooled. You get a certain amount per user, but it's all pooled, right? You can also then buy additional print volume add-on packs of 500 jobs per month. So if you have 100 users in your organization, you get 500 jobs per month. And what you will probably find is, if you go through and turn it on and people start using, devices in the office, you're actually probably not going to come up to that limit. And if you do, it's going to be 1 or 2 users. And because you can pull the usage reports and find out who those one or two users are, you can have a conversation with them about how much they really desperately need to be printing every single print job. Other thing that's nice about that is that now you can charge that back to those people and see the usage and chase it and all that kind of fun stuff too. Now, note this little job here at the bottom, right? A print job is a complete discrete job, and it is all the sheets and all the copies, and it has to be successfully delivered to the buffers and the queues on the actual print device to be considered successful. So if I send a print job and it's 1,000 pages and I'm making 100 copies of it, that's one job. If it never makes it to the print device, it's not a job. So pretty simple, pretty easy. You don't have to worry about limits on size or volume. It's just the number of unique discrete jobs. So that's really important to keep track of, right? It is not going to scale to the price concerns that I've heard about from a lot of folks. So how do we administer it? Well, this is actually the kind of the secret sauce that that gave me the first indication a few months ago that this capability was coming. And what I found back in I want to say December was under privileged identity management, Azure Active Directory gained a couple of new roles, and they are way down here under printer administrator and printer technician. So printer administrator is going to have the ability to build out the universal print connectors, create the printers, create the printer shares, do all that kind of fun stuff. This guy is going to have the ability to do registering and unregistering printers and update the statuses. So these two roles popped up in Azure Active Directory a few months ago and were a really big clue. But what they also now give us the ability to do is to pre-deploy a universal printer print provisioning package to our endpoints. What that allows us to do is say, okay, we have these 15 printers and we have a requirement that everybody in XYZ building have access to these printers. And this is another area where the product is still a little bit raw, right? So I can deploy this, and in fact, Microsoft publishes this as a prepackaged Intune Win file. So it's ready to go. It's designed to be handled at Intune. It's 100% out the door, ready to go. You just drop this into your thing and it will tell you all the defaults are pre-built for you. We can throw it at all of our users, right? And it just pops up and it shows them that administrator has made this package available. It goes through, it deploys, it runs on x86, x64. Super simple to get set up. But the trick is, if you want to also then pre-deploy printers to those users, you still have to take a CSV of the printers that you want to deploy and throw that into yet another package file that gets pushed out to these users. I don't see this being the way that we'll do it for very long, right? This is very much, like I said earlier, this is a V1 capability. So it's out the door. I can do bulk registration of printers. I can do bulk assignment of printers. I can do bulk, preloading the printers into Windows. But where I think we're going to see some really, really strong improvements in the technology and in the space over the coming months is, again, we did have all of these attributes that we were able to look at for the printer properties. Right now, I don't have a bank for these. Right now, each printer comes in with no location properties, and I have to go through and make each one of these, do it through PowerShell. But right now, these capabilities are a little bit light, right? So I think we're going to see some big improvements over that. I think we're going to see some really, really great improvements in the reporting capabilities that are going to come out pretty soon. But I just want to go ahead and do one last little section here, if I can. I was going to show you, that's right. This device, its printer properties enable us to show duplex. So I was going to show that real quick. Printer properties, here we go, the duplex mode. Now, there we go. We can do all the supported duplex modes of this particular device. So it's really cool. Now, Miriam Graham, I did say if I had time, I was going to show you how we could change where she is. And she's going to go to Bellevue. So location, we're going to set the default location. We showed that this thing by default pulled back the printer that was available in Richmond. We're going to change her default location to Bellevue, or maybe San Diego, because it's fun to have her work in Nakatomi Plaza. As long as she's not there on Christmas Eve, she'll be all right. It's a little bit slow to do the change. There we go. And yes, I know that Nakatomi Plaza was not in San Diego, but this was the only city that actually had users in California in my environment, so bear with me. It was a weak joke, but I tried for it. All right, so now we're in San Diego. Okay, if I close that and I go back to my home, and then I go back and look for devices again, and I go to printers. I hit search for printers. I'll give this a moment. It's going to come back now. Oh, okay, it's actually finding all my devices. I changed it too fast, and it didn't give me the opportunity to make that. Make the joke, that's all right. Weak joke, poor delivery. No, that's right. My San Diego printer is not shared to Miriam Graham, so she can't see it anyway. Daggone it, look at that. I actually accidentally showed you a security capability of Universal Print, making sure that the right users have access to the right printers at the right time. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, right? What we've done is we've taken away the requirement for a big, honking, nasty print spooler to manage 1 million jobs for devices that can probably actually do most of the work themselves. We've put it onto local devices that are simply registering printers into Azure Active Directory. We're allowing users to leverage their existing subscriptions to use a pooled set of print jobs where they can print from anywhere in the world that they happen to be. They can leverage some of the built-in capabilities of Windows 10. We can push printers at them, and we can get reporting on it, and we can absolutely dramatically reduce that reliance on Active Directory and allow us to start thinking about what we're going to talk about next month, which is going to be Azure Active Directory as a full identity management solution with no further reliance on on-prem architecture. So I want to thank you for joining. I'm happy to open it up for questions that you might have. I'm going to throw it back to Christina, and I am, like I said, happy to answer any questions.
Awesome job, Adrian. Loving it. Let's check. So no, someone wants to know where you get all your jokes from. The world needs to know, and I completely agree.
It's terrible.
I love your jokes.
Old movies, man.
And that was Dan Finn. He just sent it on Modest. Really for fun. Someone wants to know, what's the pricing for add-on packs?
I actually don't know. I was on the website for that a little bit ago, but all this stuff is out there on the docs.microsoft.com space for Universal Print, but we can certainly get that information if anybody wants to follow up.
Awesome. And then if anyone else, those were the only questions in the Q&A chat, but if anyone wants to pop in with any more, Adrian crushed it as always. And while we're waiting, thank you everyone for attending. You will receive a follow-up email with the recording for this webinar by tomorrow.